Hey, everybody. Super excited today for this topic around cybersecurity in AI. Really an emerging field with the thought leaders in this space, Calypso AI. Jimmy White, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, Evan. Great to be on the show, and thanks for having me.
Well, I've been looking forward to this all week. I have questions. I think you have answers. And before we jump into who's Calypso AI, maybe set the scene. I know you're in Dublin, Ireland, one of my favorite places in the world. Um, you're CTO, and introduce yourself. And how do you describe Calypso AI to the folks?
For sure. So, my name is Jimmy White. I'm the CTO of Calypso AI. At Calypso AI, we are focused on solving one big problem, which is allowing people to use LLM and adopt AI safely and responsibly. And it's a task that we love doing. We feel it's the most important thing to enable this fantastic technology. And we truly believe AI is for everyone. So, for AI to be for everyone, we got to make it easy, we got to make it safe.
Well, that sounds so easy to say. Um, but when did you? This is a brand new area, of course, when it comes to LLMs in the enterprise. So new market. When was there a problem identified with LLMs and safety, security, privacy, et cetera, et cetera? What was the big idea behind the company founding a few years ago?
Yeah, so I guess founded a few years ago by our CEO Neil Cipriani, and back then there wasn't a topic of security in AI. So I guess the first thing everyone looked to was, what are people doing with AI back then? A lot of vision work was going on. So you've seen vision work come through in mobile apps, etc., for years now, and Snapchat filters and other things we're used to day in our everyday lives. But even as far back as 4 years ago, we started seeing adversarial attacks taking place on these new neural nets that are using in the computer vision space. So that's really where we started looking at, okay, how do we understand what the threat actors are doing and what techniques are they using? How are they taking advantage of flaws or quirks in AI models? And then what can we do to detect those and stop them? And over many years, I would never say we perfected it, but we worked hard and we learned a lot about the space. And we were looking for a point to enter into this new LLM space when, earlier this year, ChatGPT caught the world's eye,
Mm.
and we started some in-house testing, and we realized with the huge adoption curve that was taking place, there was propensity for causing harm to companies, for data leakage, for unintended consequences by people who are trying to do their job and make efficiency improvements, but were unaware of all of the risks that could pose by using this technology. And that's where we got excited about it, because when we find a new entry point to a problem, we jump all over it and try to solve
While solving problems, that's a great start. And I know you mentioned you were just off the back of DEF CON, Black Hat here in Vegas, where I am at the moment. Tell us about some of the notable
it.
misuses of generative AI, how they can be avoided. What are you seeing specifically, sort of on the ground in the field?
Yeah, so we have an internal joke, which isn't a very good joke. I guess it's a bit of a dad joke, but the joke is that the scariest word in 2023 is the word summarize. And so what we see a lot of are people saying, "Hey, summarize," and then they paste in, legal documents,
Boy,
contracts, schematic designs, etc. And really, that IP that's leaving your four walls. Um, sure, it goes to some really trustworthy LLM providers, but you open up when any information leaves your network, you open up yourself to not just your own security posture, but the companies that you're trusting their security posture. And what we're seeing right now is that people are really adopting LLM in huge numbers. They're doing it with the right intention, but there are no security trainings that everybody has to go through those yearly security trainings. Don't click on a link for phishing, etc. That doesn't exist yet for large language model use. And before people become familiar to it, we're going to see a lot of accidental harm. And so our job is to get in there, provide secure ways of conducting this work, and realize the efficiencies and improvements without suffering the consequences, and allow people to use this technology uninhibited, right? That's a key part of enjoying this new technology.
Yeah, so much to unpack there, and the enjoying part is happening now. I'm just we're all thrilled with the opportunity that LLMs present. So let's talk about your solution to this, your product. So how do you
Mm.
go about securing Gen AI in an enterprise setting? Are you a sort of bridge to a secure, environment? How do you describe your product?
Yeah, so Calypso AI Moderator is our flagship product.
Okay.
It's our product that allows you to deploy on premise, which is very important. So organizations can trust that the data is not coming back to Calypso AI. It's all scanned and moderated in their own
Mm,
infrastructure. One of the major pieces I guess, functionality for folks to adopt is that it's multi LLM supported, right? So you can use it with ChatGPT from OpenAI, ChatGPT in Azure, AI 21, Cohere. There's so many great providers out there. And recently, we just added support for on-premise, locally ran models. So we're seeing from Meta releasing their Llama 2 instance a couple of weeks ago, we're seeing folks run that locally and use it to fine-tune their own data in-house. And of course, Moderator supports that use case as well.
interesting. Let's talk regulation. I mean, the regulation is lagging from, the governments around the world. We're not seeing, guidelines here. There's no guide rails for a lot of this technology. What's your take on regulation, compliance, responsible AI governance? I mean, that's part of the mix as well, right?
Yeah, I feel so bad for lawmakers and folks working in governance. It's unbelievably hard to keep up to date with the massive amount of
Mm,
progress we made in the space. So just as soon as we have something that looks like good guidance, good regulation, the goalposts are moved, 100 meters down the field. And so, really, what I think regulation needs to do is move towards creating, as you call it, the guardrails for how to safely create this technology, how the things that people need to follow and do when they're the creators of the technology. Instead of focusing on the users and saying you should do this, you should not do
mm.
this, we need to not encumber the progress, but we need to make sure that the people who are creating these models are trustworthy. And I think we really need to focus as well on, where did these models come from? Where's the lineage of these models? And as you probably are seeing now in websites like Hugging Face, which is the kind of playground for model sharing,
Mm,
it's a fantastic resource, but we're seeing a lot of people build on top of models, which is the intent. However, when you've got a model that you've downloaded from the internet and you want to use in your organization, it's critical to understand the lineage of the model. Where did it come from? What data was used to either train it originally or fine tune it? And we're seeing some companies like Adobe take a really interesting stance and create their whole entire data set that they understand and own to create their
mm.
models so that they're safe in the knowledge that every image generated from that tool comes from a data set of known quantity. And that's an interesting play by Adobe. And I feel like we'll see other model creators go from a similar stance.
It's interesting. And your go-to-market, is it directly with enterprises of all sizes as well as, the partners like Adobe or the hyperscalers or others?
Yeah, so our go-to market is with enterprise, as you pointed out. What's interesting, I think, is that we have three categories of folks who are interested. We
Mm,
have the folks who are, I guess, forward-facing, and they're creating policies internally on how to safely use this technology for their employees, and they're looking proactively for solutions to make it safe and accountability, auditability, all of the usual things that Moderator provides. Then we see customers who are I guess, reluctant adopters. They're banning ChatGPT and other technologies inside their organization, not
mm.
because there's anything wrong with the technology, just because they want to make sure that it's not used until it's fully understood and the impact to their business or potential impact. And then we have the accidental adopters is our nice term for them, where the company is unaware that they've adopted LLMs,
Mm,
but when they start seeing in their firewall huge traffic to these providers from their employees, it looks like bottom up adoption. And they usually come to us and say, hey, we've got this problem that we didn't realize we had. How can we get it on top of it? And so what we typically do is we have a program called Lighthouse, which allows you to try the software, understand the impact. And a key feature is our dashboard, which shows you the usage. What are people using their LLMs for? What topics are they discussing? What kind of answers are coming back? What's blocked? What threats have been blocked bidirectionally? And I think that gives people a really a good understanding of the adoption inside their company, and then they can take next steps and create policies around that.
Yeah, sounds like a really practical approach. I'm hearing anecdotes of large regulated companies and financial services, banking. They've completely blocked access to ChatGPT and other services, except for maybe one or two folks in the organization, because they're regulated. They have to comply with all kinds of government requirements, and they can get billions of dollars in fines for using services, uh, like outside of the ones that are validated and approved for use by employees. So there's a real financial risk for some of these companies, right?
Absolutely, and there's things like regional data protections. If you're in Europe, you've
Mm,
got GDPR, of course. If you're in the US in healthcare, you've got HIPAA, and there's a lot
mm,
of and again, it comes back to a combination of education and I guess understanding how to use this effectively, this technology. So putting, for example, a patient's information and asking for
mm.
a, give me the short version of TLDR of the report is something that is very, very dangerous and breaches a whole bunch of regulation. And those things are fines, right? Because you're dealing with people's proprietary or personal information. One of my favorite examples that we've seen is the email chain, right? So we get someone that writes an email message, and it's quite detailed, and they're not happy with the message they're portraying, and so they ask it to be rewritten in a more congenial fashion or maybe more professional fashion. But they just send each time all of the information of the particulars of that email outside of their organization, and it's key to understand as well, right, that this is a new technology and there are new consequences. So one we have kind of coined internally is corporate psyche. So what is the corporate psyche of an organization? And if you understand what questions people are asking, what sentiment is behind those questions, you can start getting an understanding of the psyche of that organization. And if you're in trading or any type of company like that, that can have a huge beneficial indicator for your next bet or your next play.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, that's one we've seen in the news, even so many kind of misuses of generative AI. Every day there's some wild story. There was one about a courtroom lawyer putting together his brief using ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
how could these beyond just educating, which you can never educate everyone on everything.
Mm.
How could these have been avoided? These news headlines that we see every day.
Yeah, so I think akin to the standard infosec world as it exists today, the need for control, right? So as each organization understands their fears, their worries, their concerns, being able to customize the security controls on top of this adoption is vital. So we view moderator as the seat belt or safety belt, like in a
Mm,
car. So when the car was first created, nobody's thought, hey, we probably need something to protect the driver and the passengers. It was many, many years later when the seatbelt was first introduced. When it wasn't standard on all cars, right? People had to go and buy it separately, fit it, etc., or buy it as an option. Many years later, Volvo made it standard, and then many years later after
mm.
that, regulation followed. And we think the same is true for AI adoption. We've got companies like ourselves providing access to seatbelts today, and getting ahead of that security concern before you adopt is vital. Trying to recapture the horse after it's bolted is never advised. But we do feel in years to come, it will become mandatory and it will become something that's regulated for, just like antivirus was many years ago.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And tell us about your personal journey with Calypso AI. You've been around this space for a long time. I think you joined about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
How's it been with in such a new area with a brand new company, new team? It sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, when I first joined, it honestly felt like it was some sort of made up industry. I used to work in Mango and FireEye,
Of
and
course, sure,
it
sure.
was quite a clear mission we had back then. And Kevin Mandy was always very clear. It was it's not if you're breached, it's when you're breached, right? So I feel the same is true today in AI, and we've been looking at this and deeply involved for 4 years. And every year, people say AI isn't adopted yet; it's not a problem yet, but every year we see problems from our customers and solutions that
Mm.
we need to provide. So the big difference this year, 2023, is the scale of adoption. We've seen the scale jump out massively.
Yeah, and we're on a rocket ship now. There's really no going back. And you have a really interesting founder with an interesting backstory. I was just reading the Forbes article about his personal profile. 25 years old, started taking classes at UCLA at 13. I was playing video games at 13, so there wasn't any thought of taking college courses. But tell us about Neil and his vision.
Yeah, so Neil is it's always quite refreshing to have your boss be what is it, 15 years your junior, and always smarter than you, right? It's a humbling experience. So, but Neil, I guess the main credit I could give to Neil is that he spotted this problem a mile away, right?
Mm,
So, when this technology, and remember, 4 years ago, it seems like 5 decades ago, with
mm,
how quickly it's advanced and been adopted. But now we're starting to see the rubber meet the road, right? So we're starting to see folks um, already far past adoption, and they're understanding the consequences right now. We've seen some high profile cases in the media, and they were all completely accidental. There was no malicious intent behind it at all. But now we're
mm,
starting to see malicious threat actors start using this technology. And so when you think of the black hat world and you think about being able to now use large language models to improve your rate of traction. So you see phishing emails like never before, really
mm,
detailed, a lot of context, well written, etc. And now you're seeing that technology being adopted heavily. You've seen new models be created for black hat purposes, right? Specifically for that purpose. And so we're here to fight fire with fire, right? We're here to arm the white hats, to the security professionals, and give them the tools to allow them to tackle this new growth in the attackers. We'll start seeing CVEs, I believe, as early as this year in this space. And we're starting to see huge changes in how folks treat their data, because data now, parameterized in a model, has a new life that is well outside where the data came from originally. So keeping track of your data with existing data laws is becoming much more difficult. And I do believe some of the data laws right now will be out of date very, very soon.
yes, yes. I think staying ahead of the curve is really tough here. So you were just at Black Hat recently. Any other events or travel coming up that you
Yeah,
might want to share?
yes, so we're always trying to attend most of the InfoSec
Mm,
security conferences, but also the AI conferences.
mm,
So we were at AI4 as well a few weeks ago, and that was great. Really great community. I do feel one thing that's great about AI space right now is the community, and we're seeing
mm.
huge interaction, a lot of sharing going on, a lot of open source technology. And so it's something that is, I feel like there's a good upsurge in people trying to do the right thing and help each other out. And much like the InfoSec community for many, many years. And so we try to make as many of those conferences and meetups as possible to share what we're doing, share what we're seeing in market, and meeting a lot of customers. So I'm in New York in 2 weeks' time to meet a bunch of customers over there.
Mm.
Financial services is obviously a huge industry for us, and New York being one of the epicenters of that domain. So yeah, I'll be in New York, and we'll publish the details of where we'll be if anyone wants to meet up and talk and nerd about AI security for as long as they want.
Oh, it sounds so fun. Well, if you're in Boston or Dublin West, as we call it, uh, definitely look us up. we'll grab a pint and have some fun. And just on a personal note, how do you use LLMs personally, professionally, on a day to
Yeah.
day basis? What are you seeing just for kicks and giggles?
So, when we were speaking before we went live, I was in my office and I set myself a personal ambition this year to wipe all art from my background until it was generated with AI with specific purposes and meaning. And so I'm three
Wow.
images in. It's getting the poster shipped is honestly the longest part, but I'm
Hmm.
creating a lot of AI art myself, and that's the bit I personally love the most. It's my kind of niche hobby that I'm into at the moment. A lot goes into prompt engineering, and I saw tweets months ago that it said, prompt engineering will become a new discipline, and I laughed and I thought that's BS, right? That's not going to happen. Well, after spending way too many hours creating my own art with prompt engineering, I actually am on that side of the fence now. I have to eat humble pie, and I think that will be a new discipline. And then professionally, I use it daily. Of course, we use it to test all of our technologies
Of
all day, every
course.
day. We use all the different providers. However, for my own day-to-day tasks, I use a lot of it around creating document content. So where I have audiences of different disciplines, I change the language and verbiage of the document to target their eyes. We use internal models for that purpose. So we have a Llama 2 instance running on a Mac Studio.
Hmm.
It runs really well, I will say, if anyone wants to try it. And we get a bunch of tokens a second. Those Mac Studios are really impressive for what they do. So download a quantized version of Llama 2, maybe go for 6-bit and run on a Mac Studio, and you'll have your own private instance of a model that runs great.
Wow, this is the future. Is not just relying on the big cloud-based technologies. So, well, thanks so much. So many insights, so many opportunities. Really appreciate your time and sharing the vision. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Calypso AI with any comments or questions. It's such an exciting time. Thanks, Jimmy.
My pleasure. Thanks, Evan. Cheers, man. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.